Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us and for sending us in all of your great questions. Those that had sent in some questions earlier, appreciate that. This is an extraordinary moment in time with the COVID-19 response and everything that we're doing to respond to that, prepare for it, including myself learning new technology in Zoom calls and conference calls. This is my second telephone town hall. My first one was a couple weeks ago with Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara. We did a joint one together. We're going to be getting to questions in just a minute, and we want to first give you a quick update from Sacramento, where I am actually calling you from the state capitol this evening on the latest happenings as we begin the last 4 weeks of session. For those of you that don't know, August 31st is the constitutional deadline for the legislature, so all of our business for the year has to be constitutionally wrapped up by then. Of course, there is a couple of parameters in the Constitution that allow certain things to go beyond the August 31st deadline, so we'll see if there's an appetite by the governor and or the legislative leadership to do that. Of course, I wish I was physically there with you. This is our busy time in session, but as many of you know, we have a great town hall system with our district staff, and we've really been kind of disappointed that we haven't been able to have those yet this year. But as soon as we're able to, we will get back to doing live town halls around the district. Let me start with a couple of updates from Sacramento. You may have seen my press release on Monday or seen me on KUSI. With Mark Larson over the last couple of days, I put out a press release regarding the remote and proxy voting. The Democrat majority leadership has jammed through approval of remote voting in the Senate committees and proxy voting in Assembly committees and on the Assembly floor. Both remote, where an absent legislator calls in their vote over Zoom, and proxy voting, where an absent legislator signs over their vote to the Assembly leaders, have been declared unconstitutional by the legislature's own lawyers, which is our legislative council. The idea that legislators will be able to somehow cast votes on bills when they aren't even in the Capitol during the bill debate is just wrong, in my opinion. I believe that the public deserves to have access to us when we're voting, and that your feedback as public and as constituents is important to those deliberations. Further, it undermines your ability to hold your leaders accountable. Voting should take place in person and in clear view of the public, just like our California Constitution says. Switching now to the budget, Governor Newsom and legislative Democrats enacted a $202 billion budget that's already out of balance, and it's only been approved for a month and a half, and is bleeding red ink. Now, this budget of $202 billion is down $20 billion from the governor's original proposed budget in January of $222 billion. Last year's budget was $212 billion, and the year before that was $203. So we have now taken our budget back 2 years to the level of 2018-19, but 2018-19 was balanced, and this year's budget has a $54 billion deficit that we will be trying to figure out how to handle throughout the year. The budget includes a variety of tax hikes that, in my opinion, will drive even more small and medium businesses to shut down or move out of state, and will result in even more jobs lost in San Diego County. The red ink was barely dry on the budget before Democrat legislators started pushing to increase property taxes on businesses and to raise taxes on families that were just starting to make ends meet. The next topic is the COVID-19 response by the legislature and your state government. The flip-flopping of the governor between closing and then reopening and then reclosing of businesses has taken a horrible toll on working families and has caused massive job losses in California. The micromanaging of the administration of menus at restaurants and bars by the state alcohol control agents would be laughable if it wasn't so detrimental. And I coined a phrase over the weekend as I posted on social media, the California COVID Calorie Police. Because it's not enough that Sacramento thinks they can manage your life from here. Now we're sending the California COVID Calorie Police into bars and restaurants to make sure that their food service complies with the governor's idea of what really is a meal. We flattened the curve early on, like we were asked, and most of us were happy to participate and help. That was supposed to be the goal, but now we still have parks, beaches, and churches restricted or closed with no end in sight. I was happy to learn today that the county is going to take up a proposal to open up more of the parks for access for church gatherings and other outdoor gatherings. That gyms, I think, are going to have access to the parks to continue offering the services that they do. Businesses and jobs. My office, believe it or not, has helped over 4,000 individual workers and families and small businesses seeking state assistance since the governor's shutdown began. As you have no doubt read, most of the issues involve out-of-work folks trying to get through EDD, that's the Employment Development Department, the folks that run our unemployment insurance, but some also involve small businesses seeking help as well. If you are in either category and still need help dealing with the state, we might be able to help. If you can, go to my website, which is sen.ca.gov/Jones, or really the easy thing to do is just Google Senator Brian Jones, and the website should come up. It has a whole section devoted to COVID-19 related issues. If you need any assistance from my staff, please visit the Contact Me page on my website to send me an email, and we'll get to work for you. I'll be sure to repeat that information later at towards the end of the call in case anybody misses it. So don't sweat the load about that. My legislation, let's give an update on what we're accomplishing as your state senator legislatively. Believe it or not, I still have several bills alive in the Assembly that moved from the Senate to the Assembly, thankfully. And as you've read, all members of the legislature were asked to cut back on our number of bills this year. As a member of the Republican minority in the Capitol, it is great to finally see fewer bills coming up for a vote this year. We're about one-third of the normal bill load from previous years, which is good for everybody in the state. That said, important and timely bills that are necessary to proceed this year are still moving through the process. I have a Senate Bill 1024, which is currently in the Assembly, which is important to our constituents in the 38th District. It allows off-highway vehicle competitions to continue in our state rather than being forced to end this coming year, as CARB did not renew the regulations to continue that. This bill is a consensus effort between the OHV community, the state administration, and other stakeholders to keep the sport going. Also still going through the process is Senate Bill 1148, which makes it easier and less expensive for homeowners to write foreclosures and keep their family homes. This bill is in anticipation of a future catastrophic downturn in the economy that may yet again destabilize the housing market. Okay, that's it for the update. We want to get to your questions. Aaron from my team is on the call and has compiled the questions that you submitted by all of you, and we're going to get through them as many as we can tonight. Aaron works in, those that don't know him, works and runs my Escondido office. We have two offices, one in El Cajon, one in Escondido. The Escondido office is located in the Chamber of Commerce building, and Aaron does a great job making sure that our North County constituents are well taken care of. Now, please understand we only have an hour, so we're not going to get to all of the questions submitted. For some of the questions that were very specific, I've asked my staff to follow up, so that may also explain why you don't hear your question asked. And also, we realized late in the RSVP system that people were submitting casework questions on the Eventbrite comments. So if we didn't get to those right away, the staff has made note of them and will begin contacting you if you made a comment through the Eventbrite RSVP system. But also you can always go to my website and resubmit your concern. In any case, if you don't hear your question tonight or you don't hear the issue that you were most concerned about, again, please call the office, which is 3136, or, again, reach out through the website. My entire team is working remotely through this pandemic, and we haven't missed a beat. Representing and being responsive to you is my top priority. So, Aaron, let's get started with the questions.
All right, Senator, thank you very much. Hi. The first question tonight comes from Susan J., and she asked, is there any chance that AB 5 can be overturned before it ruins employment opportunities for so many independent contractors, just as we are opening up the economy again? Sandy R. asked a similar question.
Thank you, Aaron. Susan and Sandy, and the others that have asked that question, that's actually one of, before COVID, that was probably the number one issue that my office got contacted regarding. And I want you to know that for those of you that are impacted by AB 5, I understand. Not only am I empathetic, but it affects me as well. My wife is a 1099 independent contractor. I have been most of my career. And so I know and understand how important this type of career is in California. And it is a career. It's not just a job. If you're a 1099 independent contractor, that's your career. That's what you chose to do. For those of you that don't know, AB 5 is the bill that interferes with the 1099 relationship between workers and people that are contracting them for the work. It was sponsored by San Diego Democrat Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher of San Diego. It's forcing thousands of independent contractors to become formal employees of a business, whether they want to or not. It's been a boon to union leaders, but not necessarily union membership, and it's been horrible for California's economy, workers, and business. AB 5 is particularly harmful to less traditional businesses, such as those owned by women, people of color, and other who prior to AB 5 were working to just get ahead in the California economy. I have been referred to a couple of times as the happy warrior. Even my Democrat colleagues know that I am a conservative, but I'm just not mad about it. And the reason I share is that I'm always hopeful, especially on the AB 5 stuff. I've co-authored and supported several measures to repeal and exempt different industries such as musicians, translators, and interpreters from AB 5. The Republican Senate caucus earlier this year rolled out a package of 12 bills to exempt different areas of our economy from AB 5. Even if my measures aren't passing themselves, they are helping move the ball on the conversation as many industries are included or are being discussed for carve-outs. To be clear, I would like to see a full repeal of AB 5, but if we can't get that, I want to make sure that every industry in California gets the carve-out that it deserves.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay, the next question comes from Doug S., and he asks, my wife and I own a hair salon in Fallbrook and are unsure if we can survive the second closing due to COVID, yet hundreds are in large box stores. Hairstylists work on appointments, have very strict guidelines regarding sanitation, and can employ all PPE that are required of other retail. Please help out our profession and industry. A similar question was asked by Alicia K., Lane R., Ron L., Dimitri B., Jeffrey N., Lynn P., Kyle L., and Kyle L.
Thanks, Aaron. This is, I think this goes to the heart of the problem of the California government response to COVID-19. It's just there's too many executive orders, regulations, mandates from the state and from the county that are contradictory, don't make sense, and certainly damaging to business. I was driving down one of the busy streets in Santee the other day, and I noticed that there was a bunch of tables outside of a nail salon, and people sitting at the tables on both sides of the table. And I asked my wife, are they doing the nails outdoors? And that's exactly what they were doing. So this is a real emergency. We're not going to eliminate the virus, and that really can't be our goal. The restrictions on our liberties can't go on forever, and we can't continue to do what the state is doing to businesses like yours. I've been very vocal as a member of the COVID-19 Response Committee for Reopening because I believe that we can do it safely. I agree with the statement in the question that nail salons can do this safely. They know how to sterilize. They know how to be safe. They were doing this stuff before COVID even started. It's not being reckless. I trust San Diego business owners. I trust you all on this call to make sure that your places of business are safe, and I trust all of us to act responsibly every day of our lives. Fallbrook happens to be in Jim Desmond's district. He and I communicate regularly, and I'm supporting his efforts to get the county to allow more of these places to open up. Thanks, Aaron.
Okay, thank you, Senator. All right, the next question comes from Sam K., and he said he supports sound and consistent government policies to slow the spread of COVID-19 as effectively as possible. Will you retract your public statement encouraging houses of worship, public gatherings, given what we've learned about the risk inherent to prolonged indoor exposure to conversation, singing, and similar activities, now known to incur the greatest risk to COVID-19 spread? Jay Buxton, NEB, LNM, MPEC also had similar questions.
As you can imagine, I get a lot of those questions and comments on my social media when I make a post, and I agree with Sam K. that sound and consistent government policies to slow the spread of COVID-19 can be effective and have been effective, as a matter of fact. On March 13th, and that week later in the week, the governor asked all of us as Californians to help slow the spread and flatten the curve of the spread of COVID-19. We've done that. The contact tracing is happening, and the contact tracers cannot show that there are significant upticks in the COVID-19 from houses of worship and these other examples that were given. The thing that I think a lot of us hopefully can agree on and appreciate is the Constitution of the United States of America that protects all of our right to disagree with our leaders and tell them about it like events tonight. That's why I'm so troubled by the governor's use of power during this pandemic. Our constitutional rights have undoubtedly been infringed without any end in sight. Some of you may remember that I had an op-ed published in the Union Tribune back in April because this was a major concern back then. I argued in that op-ed that we must hold government accountable to make sure our fundamental liberties are fully restored as quickly as possible. And you can add to that, hold the government accountable for the actual data of the COVID-19 response. But the concern of the liberties has only grown over time. Churches have adjusted to the government's guidelines, have done a phenomenal job of ensuring their buildings and congregates are safe. A lot of these churches are having outdoor services. I've visited a couple of churches during this time that have had required face masks. They've done the social distancing. They've required reservations so that family groups can sit together 6 feet away from other family groups. We don't need to shut down the way that we are because of a few who aren't as responsible. Churches are being unnecessarily and unfairly targeted, and it's unfair to those who want to worship God with their families, but understand that there are also social and psychological impacts when people are closed off from the spiritual care that they need, and I think that that's an important point that we all need to keep in mind. The suicide rate is going up in California and in the United States. Mental illness is going up. Child abuse is going up. We've got to find a way to responsibly allow people to interact with each other, and I think we've found ways to do that are working and don't rise to the level of concern that some in the media are trying to make out of it. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Senator. Our next question comes here from Escondido. Wendy M. says, vagrancy is increasing in Escondido. A downtown small store I shop at has told me she often has to lock the door when vagrants approach as they are behaving irrationally. They also defecate and leave trash in the parking lots. What is being done to change the laws from protecting the freedoms of the vagrants to protecting the safety of law-abiding citizens? Gregory Y. and Alan N. also had questions on the homelessness.
Wendy, thank you for your question. And really the problem is the law, changing the laws is what got us here. where we're at with the homeless situation in California is a function of AB 109 from 2011, which was Governor Brown's prison realignment program, Prop 47 and Prop 57, which both lowered the sentencing on some drug charges and other vagrancy charges. We're experiencing a multiple massive crises at this time. We have a pandemic. We have a housing crisis. We're always under the threat of wildfires. And as Wendy asked, now we have this homelessness crisis. And I can share with you what I've done about homelessness. And it's not just in Escondido. It's everywhere in San Diego County. It's everywhere in the state. It's especially disgusting up here in Sacramento, along the river and downtown. The mayor in Sacramento, Mayor Steinberg, who happens to be the governor's homelessness czar, is allowing homeless people to set up camp on City Hall lawn. That's how out of touch some of these Democratic leaders are regarding this issue of homelessness. Well, so here's what I've done to address homelessness. The pandemic shut down a lot of legislation this year, but at the beginning of the year, I introduced a package of homelessness bills that I hope will move the conversation forward, because the package presents an alternative approach to the unworkable solutions proposed by Sacramento and the leadership so far. And, the package included 5 measures aimed at moving Californians currently homeless and living on public streets, sidewalks, and parks into temporary transitional housing. These are my proposals. Temporary transitional housing, and emphasize compassionate assessment of each homeless person's behavior, mental health, and substance issues before placing that person in temporary housing situation. The measures also emphasize utilization of existing nonprofits, charities, and faith-based housing programs rather than state government suddenly setting up new homeless housing bureaucracies. We have enough of those. I've spent countless hours discussing these issues with experts and researching programs throughout the state that are showing results. I've looked into many models proven successful in other states and countries. I've reached the conclusion that many communities and organizations inside and outside of our state are already making progress. We should follow those models. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Last year, I discussed this with Governor Newsom and Mayor Steinberg in his capacity as co-chair of the Governor's Homeless Commission. Neither of them was interested in having a conversation then, but perhaps they've finally woken up to the issues of our state is facing and will be willing to talk now. For those of you, and I'll just give you some additional pointers for those of you that live in incorporated cities. Make sure that your city council members know. Make sure that your mayor knows. Call your police departments. File the reports. Even if you feel like the police aren't going to do anything, file the reports so that those statistics get recorded, and that will help us that are trying to make good policy regarding homelessness have some evidence for those good policies. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, the next question comes from Jesse J., and he urges you to defund the police and use a community-based approach. Lorna, Edward M., and Rebecca S. also asked about the balancing of law enforcement safety and citizen safety. How do you respond, Senator?
Well, Jesse, you and I are probably just not going to see this issue in the same way, but I do appreciate your question. I have a long history of standing up for the thin blue line of men and women who wear a badge and put their lives on the line for us every day, and that's why they are called the thin blue line, because they stand on that line between honest, working, law-abiding citizens and the very small, tiny sector of our culture and citizenship that doesn't want to obey the laws and comply with what makes our country great. I believe the vast majority of officers are the hardworking heroes that I just described. Our law enforcement community is pummeled in the mainstream media every day, it seems, and I will always stand up for the honest, hardworking men and women of our police and sheriff's department. I'm always ready to be a part of the discussion with all parties to identify areas for improvement and craft solutions. That's why I work closely with the police officer associations, with PORAC, the statewide organization. but I respect and appreciate the job our law enforcement officers do, and I strongly oppose any efforts to defund the police. And I would encourage any folks listening to this or on this call, if you are adamant about defunding the police, and that's the position that you've chosen to take, I understand, but I would ask one favor of you while you're promoting that idea, is that you would take a ride-along with your local police department or sheriff's department and live a day in the shoes of these officers that are protecting us and keeping us safe today, and just find out the truth of how hard that job is, how honest they are about it, and how hard they work in an honest, honorable way protecting us. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, the next question comes from Tim M., and he asks, Republican legislators seem to be treated like third-class citizens. Are you able to actually get anything done or have any influence?
Well, thanks, Tim. I'm going to assume there's some care and concern from myself and my family in that question. It's a reasonable question, and there's good news for you on that front. And really, one-on-one in the Capitol building, myself and my Democratic colleagues, we actually get along very well on a personal level. I can have very adamant, disagreeing debates on the floor of the Senate with my Democratic colleagues, and for the most part, neither one of us take those debates personal and be able to walk off the floor still being able to communicate and hopefully work towards a positive end in the long run. Some examples of that is I've had 5 bills signed by Governor Newsom last year. When I was in the Assembly, Governor Brown signed 19. In the 6 years I was in the Assembly, I had 19 bills signed by Governor Brown. So yes, we are able to get some stuff done. The Democratic majority is diverse. They don't always agree, and they're not always on the same page. That's normal. When Republicans stand strong, we can stop some terrible bills from passing by encouraging reasonable Democrats to agree with us and do the right thing and stop some of this bad stuff. Last year, the example of that is the California Chamber of Commerce identified 31 bills as job killer bills. And really what that means is when Chamber of Commerce identifies a bill as a job killer bill, it's not the big corporations that Cal Chamber is trying to protect. It's trying to protect the workers that are trying to eke out a living in California, and that also protects the state budget because these workers pay income tax and other taxes and contribute to the coffers of their city, their county, and the state. And so we, Republicans, under Republican leadership, getting enough reasonable Democrats to agree with us, we were able to kill or stop 30 of the 31 job killer bills from last year. So we are outnumbered, but we have an important role to play, and we often are able to yield great influence here in the Capitol building and continue to get good stuff done for our constituents.
Thank you, Senator. The next question is about a piece of legislation that you were a co-author on. Betty J. asks, why did you vote yes on AB 262? Are you in favor of repealing AB 262? What can you do to stop the California state of emergency to take the tyrannical power away from Newsom? Are you in favor of recalling Newsom? Why or why not? Very frustrated with the direction the state is going.
Well, Betty, a lot of us are frustrated with the direction the state is going, and that's across the board. If you look at polling on citizens in California, over 50% of Californians now state that they are considering moving out of the state. Well, those aren't just Republicans; those are Democrats, decline to states. Being frustrated with the state is a nonpartisan issue. Now, back to directly to your question on 262. There's been a lot of misinformation floating around about AB 262. It has just recently come up. I've heard from other constituents about it, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to clarify. Well, many have said that this bill did is not actually what the bill does. The bill was focused on the role of the public health officer in sharing information with other jurisdictions during the outbreak of communicable diseases. The bill was in response to the San Diego County hepatitis A outbreak of 2016-18. Some have suggested that other language in the bill gave public health authorities expanded powers that could result in forced vaccinations during a future outbreak. It does not do that. That language is not in there. I know there have been analyses done by attorneys in the vaccine-concerned community who looked at it and didn't believe the bill created any new government powers for public health authorities over the public, and I agree with that analysis. Also, the word vaccination doesn't ever appear in the language. Now, regarding ending the state of emergency in order to protect our constitutional rights, I just led an effort with my colleague Melissa Melendez from Riverside County to do just that, SCR 93. We introduced that last week and are attempting to get it out of committee. Sadly, we haven't even been afforded the opportunity to do an official presentation on the floor because the Democrat leadership closed down all discussion and debate and won't even allow the bill to come up for debate. It wasn't right, and we will keep fighting. We're going to, again, tomorrow ask for the resolution to come out of committee. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm very concerned about the governor's use of power, and I think it's proper for the legislature to reassert its role as an equal branch of government, both out of respect for the Constitution and the individual rights of the constituents that we represent that expect us to do our job. And I am willing to get to work doing that by repealing some of the governor's executive orders. Thanks, Aaron.
All right. Thank you, Senator. All right. The next question comes from Stephen B. He asked, why is the state government trying to eliminate Proposition 13 through Proposition 15 on the ballot? They aren't making it clear it is a tax increase. Bruce D., Kristen H., Mike B., Susan R., Michael F., Bonnie C., and Emily C. also asked about potential changes to Proposition 13.
So Prop 15 is the what's considered the commercial split roll proposition, and it's actually being pushed by the California Teachers Association and other government labor unions here in Sacramento. Not the trades unions or public safety unions, SEIU, AFSCME, AFT, and others like that just believe the state of California doesn't have enough money. And they've done an analysis that businesses aren't paying their fair share of property tax. And here's what we all need to be careful about and paying attention to when the campaigns for Prop 15 start in the fall. They're going to paint large corporations, small businesses as the evil guy that when they transfer their property or their property hasn't been reassessed in dozens or decades of years, and isn't it fair that big businesses and business owners and the rich pay their fair share? Well, that argument sounds good, but it doesn't come out in this situation. They've only done a static analysis of the financial aspect of Prop 15. So what split roll does is it separates commercial property out of Prop 13, commercial property from residential property. That's why it's called split roll. And then it would allow for commercial property to be immediately reassessed. And then I believe part of the proposal is every 3 years, commercial property throughout the state gets reassessed. How does this affect you? Well, if you're a small business owner and you rent space, lease space in a strip mall, you're a dry cleaners or a hair salon or a small restaurant or whatever, that strip mall's property tax is secure right now. It's been secure and will continue to be secure. But under this proposition, it'll increase, and it'll increase every 3 years, meaning your rent will increase every 3 years. Okay, so you say, well, I don't own one of those businesses. It's not going to affect me. Well, here's how it will affect you as just a private citizen of California. Goods and services offered in any commercial location will now become more expensive because the business owner will have to raise prices to stay even with the increasing property tax. In addition, if you're a renter in an apartment buildings are considered commercial property, and they will be reassessed. Some apartment buildings have not been reassessed for 30 years, meaning that property value and that property tax is secured, and your rent in those buildings is stable. Once that building gets reassessed, the property tax on that building could increase hundreds of fold, meaning that the rent necessarily is going to have to go up in those buildings. So even if you're a renter and don't own a business, Prop 15 is bad for you economically and not good for schools, because I think a lot of us can agree the state government's already not doing a good job with its education dollars. Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association has come out against Prop 15, and I'm opposed to any effort to eliminate any protections Prop 13 has provided us for over 40 years. And I appreciate the ability to kind of speak from the heart a little bit on that issue as well with my real estate background.
Thank you, Senator. The next question comes from Connie C., and she asked, I would like to know how Assembly Bill 2167, which amends the existing homeowners insurance rate-making process, will benefit me as a homeowner in Santee. It appears that it is primarily designed to benefit insurance companies, and that it intentionally overrides the role of the elected insurance commissioner from participating in the rate-making process.
Thanks, Aaron. Connie, thank you for your question, and actually that's a timely issue because we just voted on that bill this week. And as I mentioned in the previous question, I'm an advocate for California homeowners and taxpayers, period. People, as many of you know, Senate District 38 is in a high fire-prone area of the state. We've been impacted by wildfires multiple times, and so many of us have lived through it personally. A lot of people in our district has been shut out of home insurance market because their homes happen to be in these high fire risk areas. This is a huge, complex issue that is going to require all the stakeholders to get together and solve. I have a great relationship with our current insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara. We've worked together on a number of initiatives, including a joint town hall not too long ago. We agree that we need to make the insurance market as accessible for those in high-risk areas. We just have different ways of getting there. There's also a lot of misinformation being reported in the news right now about 2167 because of the advocates are being impacted by this, and they're, running a campaign. And so they're getting whatever they can put in the press. And so, I believe that AB 2167, which is bipartisan and a widely supported bill, will ultimately help those in my district in high-risk areas get access to home insurance, and that's my priority, to make sure that all of us have the best home insurance that we can get.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Our next question comes from Terry J., and he asks, I applied for unemployment benefits for the first time in my 71 years on May 4th due to my long-term position being eliminated. The EDD had an incorrect Social Security number for me, and it has taken 12 weeks, multiple written email and phone calls to correct it. I still have not received a benefit notification or any payments. Connie K., Noel F., Amanda P., Lisa C., and Sherry B. had similar questions regarding unemployment.
We, as I shared earlier, this is our number one constituent services call in the office right now. Our constituent services director has helped over 4,000 constituents with this problem. And we're going to have her reach out to you, Terry. And for anyone else on the call that has a problem with EDD, I'm going to give you the website, or my website again, which is sen.ca.gov/ Senate.ca/Jones. So it's Senate California Government. So sen.ca.gov/Jones. And on the page, there'll be a Contact Me option. And then select Email the Senator. Fill that out, and then you'll send me a message, and the page that describes the situation you're in, and any account numbers that EDD has provided you. And we're working every day with EDD trying to get to the problems just like yours solved. I want you to submit in writing because we have learned that communicating with EDD in writing is the most efficient way to solve problems. There is no point in calling EDD right now. I don't even call EDD. But I want you to make sure you all know that I'm trying to do everything we can to get big changes made at EDD, and I imagine next year there'll be lots of legislation dealing with that. I'm supporting an audit of EDD and have asked the governor to make many changes at the beleaguered department, but those changes are down the road. Right now I'm doing everything I can to help you as individuals get through to EDD and get that solved. Channel 8 just did a story on a woman in our district and my office, and we were able to break through for her, and she's got $14,000 in benefits coming to her from back pay and future benefits that she's entitled to. So please help us help you. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, Senator. The next question comes from Amy G., and she writes, my son and his coworkers can't go back to work because of the pandemic. They started to, and 1 month later were laid off again. He wants nothing more than to work. Is the $600 going away? Please no. Jeff B., Bernard M., Donna B., and Fife B. also had questions regarding the extended $600 unemployment benefits.
Thanks, Amy. As I mentioned earlier, I want your son, his coworkers, and all of us to get back to work as soon as possible. And I think we can do it because I believe San Diego business owners have worked extremely hard to make sure their facilities are safe. The $600 benefit was part of the Federal CARES Act program that has now expired. We are waiting to see whether an extension of that program will be included in the new relief package that is still being negotiated and being held up by some of the leadership in the House in Washington, D.C., but that's up to them. And there are some, I know that the San Diego County, the City of San Diego have added some funds to their COVID-19 response. The state's looking at to see what we can do. I know people are hurting, and that's my focus during the pandemic has been the safe reopening of our economy, getting struggling Californians connected with EDD, and the protection of your constitutional rights while we balance all of this together. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, the next question comes from Joel, and he asks, with the news media and social media deliberately reporting a Democratic agenda, how does the Republican Party combat the fake news and report the ground truth of the current situation of destruction of lives, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York, Minnesota, Atlanta, etc.? There were numerous questions that we received about getting involved to change the direction of the state from Susan S., Rick M., Liz H., Joan G., Forrest H., Donna D., and John T.
Well, I'm going to, kind of be frank and honest with Joel here regarding the media. I don't, the mainstream media, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. The mainstream media is broken and they just don't have our best interest in it. It doesn't matter if you watch CNN or Fox, MSNBC or ABC and CBS or, any of those mainstream media. They all have an agenda. They're driven by, profit dollars. And so I think you can't even watch the evening cable news networks, any of them, and get a full picture of what's really going on. So I do my best to look at alternative media and news sources to get more of the story, and I really try to find news sources that dig deeper into the stories rather than just deliver the headlines. And I'm going to give you some peculiar ones. probably. The UK Daily Mail. Now, in the United Kingdom, that's considered a second-tier news outlet. But they actually, if you go, they have a U.S. page. If you go to the UK Daily Mail U.S. page, they actually have very good reporting. And oftentimes, when they're reporting on a story, even a local story from San Diego or from California, they have better reporting and better research than our local California newspapers and news agencies do. Some independent media that I like is Prager University. They're doing a great job of digging deep into lots of topics that are headlines right now, and they oftentimes have highly educated experts on to dig deep into topics. Turning Point USA is a millennial up-and-coming media outlet that is really firing up young people. I would argue probably towards a libertarian perspective of, and I think they don't have a bias, Democrat or Republican. I think they're really trying to get young people to think about outside the box of both parties. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We try to update as much as we can. My handles on all of them are SEN Brian Jones, SEN Brian Jones. San Diego has a great cable network called One American News Network, OANN. You have to find them on cable or computer. Some commentators that I think are good and a little edgy. Joe Rogan has a podcast, and you got to watch that. Sometimes it gets a little vulgar, but he is bringing out some great stuff. And just announced recently he's moving from California to Texas. Is that incredible? Joe Rogan, longtime television star, recent podcast guy, adventure media. He probably, I don't know how much he makes, a ton of money, is moving from California to Texas because he's just fed up. That's unreal. Real Clear Politics is a blog conglomeration and Drudge Report, of course. Many of us are familiar with that, which is basically Drudge Report is, again, a conglomeration of different news sources on one page so you can see what's going on. I hope that helps. I do my best to not get sucked into the cable news network morass, for lack of a better term.
Thank you, Senator, for that great list. I was surprised to hear about Joe Rogan. Our next question comes from Mark F., and he says, California is becoming unaffordable for our children due to high taxes, high housing costs, and high energy costs. Senator, how do you respond?
Mark, there's probably dozens of people on this call right now that agree with you, and obviously I don't know how old you are, but I'm 52. This week's my birthday. I'll be 52. I've got 3 kids, 25, 23, and 21. My 2 oldest have graduated from San Diego State. Fortunately, they were able to find jobs in San Diego. My second son, my third child, I have boy, girl, boy. He's going to be transferring. He's at Grossmont College right now. He plays volleyball for Grossmont College. He's going to be transferring to a 4-year college here pretty soon. I'm hoping he can stay in California. We all of us that are parents that have kids, adult kids, want them to be able to stay in California. And that's why I am so committed every single day, no matter how hard it is on Monday morning, to get up and drive to the airport and fly to Sacramento and then come home on Thursdays. Why I'm committed to this job is because I want to make sure that the California I grew up in, that my family moved to in 1978 from Colorado, because it was the land of opportunity. It was the Golden State. My dad was a home builder in Colorado. He applied for 10 jobs and was offered 8 in the 2 weeks we were here on vacation in 1978. And that's not California anymore. And we need to turn it around, and it's calls like this that help. It's constituent outreach, ideas from you for legislation that I can run, but we all have to work together and really pay attention in November when we're voting on who we're selecting to run our state. And I'll tell you one of the things I get frustrated with is people who pay an extreme amount of attention to what's going on in D.C., and they ignore what's going on in Sacramento. And I can tell you the policies coming out of Sacramento impact your day, your life every day in a much greater way than the policies coming out of Washington, D.C. So I'm doing everything I can to turn this thing around and make California golden again.
Thank you, Senator. It looks like we have time for one more question. This comes from Cynthia W., Dennis D., and Susan B., and they've asked about illegal immigration and specifically the taxpayer-funded social services for undocumented immigrants in California. Can you share your views on this topic?
Thanks. And, we get that a lot, too. California obviously is a very diverse state with lots of cultures and backgrounds contributing to our economy and how special California is. And we've got lots of immigrants that come to California legally from all over the world. And they are positive contributors to our culture, to our society, to our economy. And it really is unfortunate when we have leaders in government that want to give tax dollars going towards social services, free education, college for illegal immigrants. And I think that, that's one of the reasons, one of the things that we really have to be careful about is giving these handouts to folks that come here illegally, because it impacts the folks that are here legally. And so I have voted against measures that continue to fund social services and other things on numerous occasions. Most recently, I opposed the governor's coronavirus assistance fund that included $75 million in your money, taxpayer-funded money. That's yours and my money, your money when you work hard and pay your income taxes for those living here in California illegally. We have a $54 billion deficit, and we're looking at steep cuts to education and services for the developmentally disabled, and yet we're putting tax dollars into programs like this one. It doesn't make sense to me. I think it shows how screwed up our priorities are, and it doesn't help to solve the problems of our immigration system either.
Thank you, Senator. It looks like our time tonight is just about over. Do you have any closing remarks you'd like to say to the attendees?
Well, thanks, Aaron, and everybody that's on the call. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're taking an hour out of your valuable evening time, maybe even family time or work time to be on this call, and I appreciate it, and I don't take that for granted. And it does help me hear from you on, do my job here in Sacramento. I want to give my contact information again. The phone number is 619-596-3136. Again, the phone number is 619-596-3136. The website is sen.ca.gov/Jones. And again, if you just Google Senator Brian Jones, most likely that website will come up. I'm hoping to do more in-person town halls, but until we can, we'll do more phone town halls. I would, if you're able to give feedback on this, we'd love to hear what you thought of it so that we can improve it and make it better for next time. And I just want you all to know that my family and I don't take for granted the great honor and opportunity that you all have afforded us by supporting us, voting for us, and giving us feedback on how you think the state should operate. We don't take that lightly. We are honored. I'm honored to be your senator and look forward to having many more positive and productive conversations with you all. Thank you very much.